Hello everyone, it's me Wendy from Bake with Baker Bee. Welcome back to my channel. For today's video, I'm going to show you how to make famous Portuguese custard tarts. If you have been following me on Instagram, I had a fantastic holiday with my husband in Portugal. Absolutely beautiful there, and I couldn't stop eating these delicious tarts. You can literally buy them everywhere. I had to stop myself from eating one every day. So after we got home, I decided to make this delicious dessert and share the treat with you. If you know Hong Kong and Macau, these tasty tarts will be familiar to you, along with our Hong Kong delicacy of egg tarts, which are similar but not made in quite the same way. The tart has two parts, the pastry and the custard, plus dusting icing sugar and cinnamon before serving. After a bit of research, I decided to give a little twist on it by using Chinese puff pastry instead, the recipe for which I found in Christina Chou's Mooncakes and Milk Bread Cookbook. Preparing the butter block and wrapping it in a flour dough instead of spreading the softened butter onto the dough. But don't worry, the tart shells turn out still flaky and buttery, and according to her descriptions, this pastry is more crispy. But more than that, it also can be used for the Hong Kong style egg tart shells. One pastry for two recipes. Handy, right? I will share a recipe of Hong Kong egg tarts in an upcoming blog. The recipe for the custard I adapted from my baking idol, Cupcake Gemma. I followed her exactly the same as she did in her video. Voila! It turns out very silky and creamy. Mwah! Just delicious. Alright, are you excited about this recipe? So for no further talking, let's get started. Step number 1. Prepare the butter block. First of all, chop 227 grams of chilled butter into small cubes for easy blending. Then prepare 150 grams of all-purpose flour. Here I'm using my mini food chopper to help me blend these two ingredients together. But if you have a food processor, then go for it. As you can see, after all the butter is loaded, it is actually pretty full. That's why I recommend using a bigger food processor. Then add the flour into it. Close the lid, then I will give it a few pulses. After a while, as you can see, the flour and the butter are gradually blended together. I'm actually quite amazed that this mini food chopper is doing a pretty good job. What I am looking for here is a kind of wet dough-like texture, just like this. Now I can stop the food chopper and I'm going to transfer it to a sheet of cling film using a silicone spatula. The dough is actually quite sticky and hard to get it out from the mixing cup. It needs a little bit of time and effort. Then wrap it well but not too tight, just like this. Flatten it a bit by hand first, then get a rolling pin, gently roll it approximately into a 5-inch square. Just like this. Place it in the refrigerator to chill until it becomes firm. Now our butter block is done. Let's move on to step number 2, prepare the flour dough. You will need 210 grams of all-purpose flour, 1 large egg, 75 milliliters of ice water, and half teaspoon of sea salt. Once again, here I'm using my mini food chopper to get the job done, but if you have a bigger food processor, then use it. Place all the ingredients in it. Flour, salt, an egg, and finally the ice water. Close the lid and give it a few pulses to mix the ingredients together until they turn into a dough. It doesn't take too long, around 1 minute. When you can't see any flour sticks onto the sides of the mixing cup, it means it is done. The texture of the dough is like soft bread dough, just like this. Transfer the dough onto a sheet of cling film. First of all, I fold two sides of the cling film together and squeeze all the air out to prevent trapping air. Then use a rolling pin to gently roll the dough a bit flatter so that I can easily roll out the dough in the next step. Wrap it really well to stop it from drying out because we need to place it in the refrigerator for about 30 to 60 minutes to chill until it becomes firm. Step number 3. Make the Chinese puff pastry. Before we start making the pastry, please make sure that the butter block is chilled and firmed. Dust the surface with flour, avoid any sticking. Unwrap the flour dough and dust it with flour as well. Start rolling out the dough into a rectangle. It needs to be big enough to wrap the butter block in. If the dough sticks, just dust some flour either onto the dough or the rolling pin to stop it from sticking. The texture of the dough is very pliable, so it is very easy to roll it out into our desired shapes and size. When it is ready, take the butter block out from the fridge and unwrap it. Place it in the middle of the flour dough. Completely wrap the butter block in and we are going to start our lamination, which is folding and rolling the butter into the dough over and over again to create thin layers. In this process, we are going to do 3 sets of folding and rolling. This is the first one. Start by using the rolling pin to press down the butter block. Do not start rolling the dough at this stage because it will easily tear the flour dough. Feel free to dust the dough with flour if it starts to stick. Also, make sure the butter block is still hard. If it starts to go soft, just pop it back to the fridge to chill it until it becomes firm again. When you finish pressing down in one direction, rotate the dough 90 degrees and continue the process. I can say the lamination process is quite hard work because the butter block is still very firm, but I promise all this hard work will pay off and we will definitely be rewarded with flaky and crispy tart shells. To avoid you getting bored from this pressing and turning process in the first fold, I compressed this part from approximately 5 minutes to 18 seconds. After 5 minutes, as you can see, the butter block and the flour dough are gradually integrated into each other. You will notice or feel that you can start gently rolling the dough out. Our goal here is to roll it into the size of a 9 by 14 inch rectangle. Just like this. Please be reminded that this is just a guided size. There isn't any definite size here. Approximate one is okay. Now I can start my second fold. Fold the bottom third up and the top third down to create a small rectangle. Rotate the dough 90 degrees. Dust it with flour to avoid any sticking. Repeat the pressing, rolling and turning process until roughly a 9 by 14 inch rectangle. It doesn't matter if it is not exact. The second fold here is a lot easier than the first one, as the butter block has already integrated into the flour dough. For your reference, I compressed the process of this fold from around 2 minutes into 13 seconds. Now it comes to the third fold, also the final fold. Keep going, we are nearly there. If your dough turns soft at any point, just place it in the refrigerator to chill until it firms up again, and then you can continue to work on it. Repeat the same process. Dust the dough with flour to avoid any sticking. Rotate it 90 degrees and then start pressing, rolling and turning. This time, try your very best to roll the dough into a 9 by 14 inch rectangle because it will be easier for rolling it into a log in the next step. For your reference, I compressed the process of the third fold from around 3 minutes to 25 seconds. Bear with me, I didn't cut out any footage of making this puff pastry because I want to show you the exact process of making it. It sounds quite complicated, but actually from my experience, it is not. It just needs some care and patience. I'm sure if I can do it, so can you. After 3 folds and now the size of the dough is around 9 by 14 inches, the lamination process is done. Next, prepare a tray and line it with a sheet of baking paper for easy handling. Place the rolling pin on the long sides of the dough and use it as a tool to transfer the dough onto the tray. Wrap the dough tightly with cling film to avoid it from drying out. Because my tray is a non-stick baking tray, I need to wrap it from the top as well as the bottom to ensure the dough is well wrapped. Refrigerate the dough for at least 60 minutes before working it again. Unwrap the dough and lightly flour the surface. Start from the long side, roll the pastry up into a log. If you find it difficult to roll, you can use a dough scraper to lift up the pastry so that you can easily roll the pastry without breaking it. But as you can see, mine doesn't have any problems at all, as long as the pastry is chilled enough. After it becomes a log, slightly adjust and roll it again into an even log. Use a sharp knife to trim off both ends. My dough now is around 22 inches long, and I'm going to cut it in half and wrap each piece in cling film for at least 3 hours or even overnight. Or you can place the dough in the freezer until you need it. Step number 4. Make the custard. You will need 250 milliliters of milk, 165 milliliters of water, 240 grams of caster sugar, half a teaspoon of vanilla extract, an additional 60 milliliters of milk, 40 grams of all-purpose flour, 6 egg yolks, and 1 cinnamon stick. For your reference, mine is about 6 inches long. First of all, get a medium mixing bowl. Place the all-purpose flour and the 60 milliliters of milk into it. Whisk them well until you can't see any flour. Next, get a heavy-duty saucepan. Pour the sugar and the water in. Shake the pan a bit to make sure the sugar is fully covered by the water. Turn on the medium heat. And finally, place the cinnamon stick in. Let it simmer. Remember, do not stir it. Meanwhile, get a smaller saucepan to heat up the milk. When you see some bubbles on the sides, turn off the heat. Alright, let's get back to the cinnamon sugar syrup. During the first few minutes, there is nothing happening. You can shake the pan to even out the sugar layer, but don't be tempted to stir it, otherwise the sugar will crystallize. That's what we don't want, do we? Be patient. After a while, the syrup starts bubbling up. Now place a thermometer to check the temperature. Our goal here is to heat it up to 100 degrees Celsius. It's quite exciting to watch the temperature going up, isn't it? 80 degrees Celsius, 90 degrees Celsius. Yay, 100 degrees Celsius. Now turn off the heat and use a heat-proof clip to remove the cinnamon stick. Be careful, it is very hot. Alright, syrup is done. Now it's time to put everything together. Pour the warm milk into the flour mixture while whisking it at the same time. Make sure there isn't any mixture left on the sides of the bowl. Followed by vanilla extract. Just gently mix them well. Then pour in the hot cinnamon sugar syrup and keep stirring it until it is warm to touch. Now the sugar syrup is still warm but not hot, so we can add our egg yolks into it. Don't add them while the syrup is still hot, otherwise it will scramble them. Break the yolk first, then whisk them well until everything is well incorporated. Get a jug or measuring cup for easier pouring the filling into the tart shells later. Sieve the mixture once in order to get silky smooth custard after it is baked. Look at it, this is why we need to sieve the mixture. Then cover it with cling film and place it in the fridge until we need it. This amount of egg custard will fill between 14 to 18 tart shells, and you can keep it in the fridge for up to 3 days. Step number 5. Mold the tart shells. Here I'm using aluminium tart shell mold. The size of it is on the screen now. You don't need to grease the molds before you shape the pastry. There will be no problem removing the tarts after they are baked. Here is my chilled dough. I did try to use a different amount of pastry for one shell, 26 grams, 25 grams, and I found 24 grams are perfect for one shell. Too much pastry will be undercooked. If there isn't enough pastry, it will become very thin and the shell might break. Wow, can you see the layers inside the pastry? Woohoo, satisfied! Continue to cut as much pastry as you need, and don't forget to weight each of them to get the precision. Then you can tightly wrap the rest of the pastry and keep it in the freezer for any emergency treats. Place each piece of pastry inside the mold and prepare some water as well. Dip your thumbs in the water and start by pressing down the pastry against the bottom of the mold first. Once the bottom of it is covered, then keep turning the mold and gradually push and stretch the pastry up along the sides of the mold. The bottom of the pastry should be thinner than the sides, but not too thin, otherwise it might break. Be careful of the pushing and stretching of the pastry. You need to keep turning the mold in order to get an even layer. Otherwise, one part of the shell may be thicker than the other. As a result, the pastry may not be cooked evenly. When the pastry covers the whole mold, keep stretching it a little bit higher than the rim of the mold to create a kind of pastry rim. Just like this. Place it in a baking tray for easy handling. The first one is done. It is not that difficult, is it? Continue to make as many as you need. Remember, just place the pastry back in the fridge to chill until it becomes firm again at any point when you feel the pastry is getting soft. Cover the pastry mold with a sheet of cling film and place it in the fridge to chill for at least 20 minutes or overnight, or even in the freezer until you need them. But of course, they need to be wrapped really well if you place them in the freezer. Now you can preheat your oven to 240 degrees Celsius. Yes, it is pretty high, but the pastry needs to be baked at a high temperature in a short time. Step number 6. Assemble and bake the tarts. Get another baking tray because just be safe not to put a chilled one in a very hot oven, but this is just my personal choice. Unwrap the pastry tart shells and place them onto it. Unwrap the custard as well and whisk it thoroughly before pouring into the tart shells. Remember, the custard should not be more than 3/4 full, otherwise it will spill out when baking. When the oven reaches the desired temperature, place the baking tray on the 1/3 top of the oven. Bake them for about 12 minutes to get the caramelization on top. But please keep a very close eye on them because after all the hard work, the last thing we want is to burn them. Wow, what a smell! I really wish you could smell them too, and if I could, I would like to share them with you. Let me tell you, they smell very buttery and aromatic. Smells divine. Let the tarts cool down a little bit in the tart molds. When they are okay to touch, unmold them and place them on a cooling rack to avoid any steam softening the crispy pastry. Well, be careful, they are still very hot. Then place the warm tarts on a serving plate or board. Dust some icing sugar and ground cinnamon before serving. Look at them. They are so beautiful, aren't they? And listen. The pastry is so crispy and flaky. Yum! This is the best tarts that I have ever had. I tried to split the tart to show you the custard, but I can't break it because it is so creamy and silky. What I can do is to break the flaky tart shell only, but whatever, I can't stop eating it right now. Yum! Look at the silky smooth custard. It is just baked. That's why the timing and the temperature is crucial. Whoops! All gone. So how was it? You can't wait to get into your own kitchen and start creating this irresistible aroma. Let me know if you have any questions. Just leave them in the comments box below and I would love to answer them. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up and share it with your friends and family. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you like baking as much as I do. Alright, thank you so much for watching and I will see you all in my next video. Bye bye!